Very good morning, everyone. I must tell you, when I walked in, I love the setting of this room. I love the fact that there are as many women as men. I just found out that there are about 400 of you attending. I also heard from Shobha's introduction that we have people from other countries. I also like the effort that, FICCI, under Shobha's leadership, the intent behind this whole series. So I'm starting with very high feelings. I'm starting with a lot of positivity, and want to thank each and every one of you for making this effort to come here, because only then will the initiative that Shobha has in mind will be successful. So again, very, very good morning to you. Shobha and I did not decide to wear the same green, it just happened. And I was worried that, when she was introducing me, she'll start with, oh, she has a passion for fashion. But another thing that I must say is, I was sitting next to, Mr. Koshi here, and I love the fact, one, that, he is a design stalwart. And I'm going to use design in two ways. He actually was designing or responsible for, senior director in NIFT, the fashion technology. But then he told me, I'm also now designing industrial machines, etc. So I love the fact that, we have, variety of experiences, men driving fashion. It's not just the women who are consumption of fashion industry, it's men also. So lovely audience, and I really hope to do justice to give you some of the information that I have and make it a useful 30, 40 minutes with you. Where do I point to?
Just anywhere, so you can see there on the screen.
It's not, I can't see it. Okay, let me start before, the presentation comes. Hopefully it'll come soon. I want to start with, what is artificial intelligence? Thank you. There was a time when we, as Intel, used to look at, how do I create a computer by looking at brains? Time has come now that the brain is teaching us what the computer should be. And that's what machine learning is. Try to do the thinking, leveraging data, build experience, and then create inference. Essentially, that's all what artificial intelligence is. Shobha very aptly put, it's nothing new. For the last 50, 60, 70 years, we've been talking about neural networks. Networks that behave like our brain. So what has changed? Why has it become a buzzword? Honestly, I'll tell you, the world has many CEOs, and I will assure you half of them don't really understand AI or machine learning, but because it has become such a buzzword, everybody's saying, we will be investing in AI, we will be leveraging in AI. Why has it become a buzzword? It has been in existence for 50-some years. It has become a buzzword because of the availability of compute, the availability of storage, and the availability of transmission. Can I tell you that now some of the chips that we design that sit in data centers literally have billions of transistors. So if the world has 7 billion population, our chip in the server can have 7 billion transistors. That's the capability we have today. If I look at what we did 50 years ago, thousands of transistors multiplied to millions, now we are in billions. So what does the billions of transistors tell you? The ability to process. Now, why do we need the ability to process? We need the ability to process because we have huge amount of data available. I will also give you a story now. During 1858, there was a cholera epidemic in London. There was a guy by the name of John Sun. You know what he did? He simply took the map of London and plotted where the deaths of cholera happened. Just simple plot. You know what it did to the doctors, all the health specialists? They used to believe that toxic air is causing cholera, and cholera is spreading because of the toxic air. Just by the sheer power of that London map with cholera deaths, made the doctors realize that the deaths were happening because of contaminated water and not air. Let me give you another example. I'm sure everybody has heard of Florence Nightingale, the nurse. She was another huge data analyst. Because of her analysis, again, it's another example of health area, it just happened to be, the doctors realized that many of the patients, the war patients, were dying not because of the wound, but because of the unhygienic conditions in the hospital. So what does these two analysis tell you? It tells you the power of data, it tells you the power of analysis, and then it tells you the power of inference, all to save lives. Essentially, that is exactly what AI is. Take data, stitch the data to a model, whether it is the London graph of cholera or it is the analysis that Florence Nightingale drew of the unhygienic hospital conditions and deaths. That is what is called model. So from data to model is nothing but training. So you will hear these buzzwords, training and inferencing. What I want to tell you is we've been doing it for so long. Simple analysis, take data and build it into a model. Once you have the model, then you work on the prediction. That's what is called inferencing. When the doctors saw the London map and the cholera deaths, realized that, oh, this locality is sharing the same pool of water. And contaminated water is the reason of death. So that is what is called inferencing. Now, what is AI doing? AI is taking all this information from around the world. For thousands of years, we have doctors making prescriptions for each one of us, writing our condition, giving our inferences on here are the medicines you should eat. We have learned over the years. Do you know that for things like arthritis as well as asthma, we were giving medicines made of mercury. And today we know how damaging mercury is. How do we learn? We learned out of a lot of data put together after several hundreds of years. What can compute do? Compute can take all of this data, do the crunching for us, create the model, and show the graphs. Whether it is a London map or whether it is a Florence Nightingale analysis, it can be done in a jiffy. And you need storage because amount of data that is available in the world needs a huge amount of storage. So often you hear AI associated with cloud. What is cloud? Cloud is nothing but huge amount of compute and storage available that you don't have to necessarily own. A startup can be leveraging huge amount of storage, huge amount of compute because of access of cloud. So cloud and AI often are used together. Why? Because we need a huge amount of data, you need a huge amount of compute, which cloud provides. Now, because of the availability of this much compute, remember the billions of transistors on a chip, and because the availability of technologies like 4G getting into 5G, 5G will enable 10 gigabits per second kind of transfer. With that kind of transmission capability and storage technologies like non-volatile memory, like 3D crosspoint, the amount of storage you can make is humongous. Just to give you an idea, today everybody has those tiny little pen drives you put in your USB, and it has, gigabytes of storage. With technologies like 3D XPoint, you can have terabytes of information in that tiny form factor. So that's the advent of technology. And AI use cases, the deployment is going to be new in areas which you have never used before. That's the innovation that we are seeking. Technology is already there. That's the innovation that many of you can provide. So if you look at where is the transformation going to happen with the help of technologies like AI, in the space of consumer goods, at retail. We have Mr. Sahu here. HR for Reliance. Reliance is also into retail. Reliance is into telecom. The amount of possibility of understanding consumer behavior through AI is enormous. Not only is it beneficial for the likes of Reliance, it's beneficial for the likes of me. If AI can help the place where I shop understand my behavior, my likes, it will show me things I like. And I don't have to surf, millions of stores. I would rather do, shopping on the few stores that it gives me information of all. Similarly, in health, this is one area I'm personally very interested in driving because of the accessibility to doctors, to diagnostics that AI can make. I'm personally very driven because in our country, India and many other countries, the number of people who die due to misdiagnosis or due to lack of availability of healthcare is nerve-wracking. And if technology can save lives, nothing can be better than this. Everybody is born and deserves to live a good, fruitful life. And I feel that each one of us owes to help the others that are, less fortunate. Finance. A lot of understanding of, where can AI like technology help in finance? In the area of fraud detection, in the area of cheating that happens, leveraging credit cards, in understanding tax implications much better. So tax frauds don't happen. Similarly, we have huge number of, transport is another thing. Let me tell you, 17 young people die on the roads due to traffic accidents. And if technology like AI can prevent these, how wonderful can it be? And we need to think what technology can do. Let me give you one more quote from Henry Ford. Henry Ford said, if he was not driving invention and innovation, and if he sought input from people who were consuming the technology, they would be saying, I need faster horses rather than cars. Because originally, after the wheels came into the picture, we were moving around with the help of horses. But if people like Ford did not think of automotives, the natural progression would be horses and animals. So we need to think different. We need to think disruptive. We need to think where can technology be transformative. Several other technologies can be leveraged in partnership with AI. For example, security. For example, 5G. But this room here can enable many of those disruptive use cases. I also want to give you, when I don't want it to work, it works very fast. Let me give you a very small equation. I love it, and I will be candid with you where I got it from. We have all got WhatsApp groups, family groups, friend groups. One guy sent me this equation saying, let me explain to you the first one. If on a daily basis, I improve my efficiency by as little as 1% each year. So 1 is my capability, 1% efficiency makes me 1.01 raised to the power of number of days in a year. I get productivity of 37.8. You put your calculator, 1.01 raised to 365, you get 37.8. You are roughly 40x more productive. However, if you take away that 1% efficiency, you sleep a little bit more, you goof off a little bit more, you chat a little bit extra, more than usual. This is allowed. More is what I'm talking about. You take away 1% efficiency, in the year, you have almost zero productivity. Let me just tell you, again, we were having good discussion before we came to this presentation. What has happened in the area of optimized use cases for AI? So image recognition is one, speech recognition is another. Let me tell you that image recognition, and this is the technology we are using heavily in the health space. For example, Intel is working with Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and we are looking at cancer diagnosis, lung cancer diagnosis, breast cancer diagnosis, even bone degeneration, etc. How? We have a lot of scans of the cancers that were there. We also have scans of cancers were not there, but were called out as cancers. Or the scans that were not called out as cancer, but was a cancer. So we took all of that, applied our computer vision technology, trained a model, created a model which will tell, oh, if you see a green dot surrounded by a red, even if it is this tiny and the green that your eye cannot perceive, but the computer can, you predict that there was cancer. Another very scary statistic, I'll tell you, not in India alone, but across the world. The number of chemotherapies given to patients who don't need it, you will not believe how amazing, astonishing it is. It's in the 90%. And you know what chemotherapy does? It kills the good cells also. It makes you come out weaker than ever before. It'll take you years to recover. Some people, older people, don't even recover out of chemotherapy. My grandmother died out of one chemotherapy session. I don't even know if she had the bone cancer or not, because the doctors were not sure whether it's bone TB or is a bone cancer. So each one of us has either lost somebody on the road accident or has seen death very closely to a family member. Imagine if a computer vision technology could help. Similarly, speech recognition. Whenever you think of finance, whenever you think of support of an agriculture professional in a village, what speech recognition can enable. If we get connectivity in our rural areas, if we have technologies like speech recognition, imagine the access. Again, Mr. Sahu comes from Orissa, and I love saris. Amazing weaving happening in Orissa. Imagine if the Orissa weaver had access to the market of the world. We are a $2.5 trillion economy only. The world has 70 trillion. Imagine if the weaver gets access to that kind of a market, what magic he can do. So I want to tell you that our speech recognition capability is as high as 98% of the time. Whatever you speak, 98% accuracy, this algorithm will understand. And we are looking at all the different languages that we have in our country. So machines are becoming as smart in understanding vision, or in our case, even smarter. Why? Because if we had access to all of the data that the doctors had, the doctor wouldn't be treating somebody with mercury for asthma. So the thousands and millions of doctors together is what this technology can enable us with. I never fear technology, that technology is going to take my job. We are the technology creators. When we create technology, we leverage technology for our advantage. We will create more work and different work. I fully agree with Shobha that if, by the way, just for another statistic, by 2025, they say 50% of our jobs will be automated. But we will create more jobs, and I will tell you that more and more psychologists will be needed. More and more economists will be needed. You know, while we are pushing for STEM, of course STEM is required, but other skills are also required. AI is a multidisciplinary technology consumer. I will show you what those are. Now I'm going to give you how synonymously people have been using AI, machine learning, deep learning, brain-inspired learning. Now, AI has been in existence for 50, 60, 70, 100 years. What was artificial intelligence? Even machines that performed some of the tasks of human beings, like the Greek mechanic soldiers, was also AI, artificial intelligence. But now what has happened is AI is used synonymously to machine learning. Now, what is machine learning? Machine learning is nothing but a technology that takes data, trains and builds a model with the help of data, validates the model with additional set of data. Once the model is built, then this model is applied in the industry you are, and it does the prediction or inferencing. I will share with you what are the disciplines required. But before I share with you, I want to tell you that today, AI, ML, DL are all used synonymously, but there is a difference. The larger umbrella is AI. Amongst that larger umbrella is machine learning. What is machine learning? Leverages data, builds a model, creates, inferencing. Now, building the model can use different statistical technologies. Everybody has heard of linear regression. How many of you have heard of linear regression? Perfect. Let me put it in an even more simple format. In Excel, how many of you have built a graph that says y equals mx? I'm sure most everyone, right? Now, regression is one of the ways you can build a model. Similarly, there are very many different statistical models that you can use. Method of steepest descent, Bayesian technologies, probabilistic technologies. By the way, in 19th century is when statistics came into being. That there is a lot of value in analysis, and they're created, this whole, subject called statistics. I'm already giving you hints that AI needs a lot of statistics. What is deep learning? One special technology used by machine learning to enable this model building is what is called deep learning. Now, before I go out of AI, AI, like technology, will require a lot of regulatory intervention, policy intervention, moral intervention, ethical intervention. I will give you one example. Companies like BMW say, if I am driving on the road, meaning the BMW car is driving on the road, to me, the most important set of human beings to save will be the people sitting in my car. Regardless of two old people crossing the road, a school, children crossing the road, for BMW, this is important. Now, some other country can say, oh no, wait. If the people that could be hit with the car are school-going children, I want to save them. So these are some of the interventions that people will have to make. I'll give you one more example. I told you AI depends on data. I will give you one example of Intel. And why was I so pleased to see so many women? In Intel, we have very few women architects, very few very senior technologists. So many times I would be the only woman sitting in a room full of men talking technology. Now, if I take Intel data and build a model, you know what my model will say? Men are better architects than women. Why? Because my data said so. I was giving 100 men and 2 women. So it will make that analysis. I'll tell you one more analysis. In United States, many of the jails, unfortunately, have a lot of Afro-Americans. Now, AI, if it takes that, will say Afro-Americans are, have more criminal DNA in them. Not true. So those are the kind of interventions we'll have to make. Absolutely essential. So I think I'm going to skip this one. I already told you, machine learning will take a lot of data, build a model. Building a model will require some algorithms. I have some mentioned here. Bayesian technology, decision trees. These are all different technologies, very much like a linear regression. This is used to then predict. So if I had a face that you can see, by the way, it's one of our Intel engineers, very senior, one of our founders of Nirvana acquisition that we made. We actually give Arjun's face. Many of these variables will be the different features: oval face, nose, eyes, the gap between the eyes. Those are called features. Then there will be some weights associated. Remember I told you y equals mx plus c? If y was weight, x was height, m is a factor which is a weight. Similarly, in these models, there are very many weights given. And finally, it predicts that this face is of Arjun. Now, deep learning has different technology, different model to come up with the same outcome, that this face belongs to Arjun. I think one more thing I can tell out of this. So, you will hear many different data sets. I'll tell you what data sets are. ImageNet is one data set which has millions of pictures. Data set is nothing but a compilation of very many pictures. Now, like I said, looking at breast cancer detection, what was my data set comprised of? My data set comprised of lots of breast cancer scans. Some were cancerous, some were not, some were wrongly called out, some were missed out. That becomes a data set that we feed into the model. So this data set, you can see a bicycle, a strawberry, and some human being. Whole lot of data set. We build a model, and then through an iterative process, finally my model says, this is a bicycle. I have seen this process while, a few years ago we were building an inference engine, how a airplane detection started with a bird, that it looked like a bird because, the airplane was too far, and how then it turns into, an airplane. That's a whole process of iteration. And once you have learned it, that even the farthest airplane is detected as an airplane, you say, okay, now my model is trained. After that, you take another data set, very much like this, random pictures of my bicycle, airplane, this, that, feed it, that's called validation. And now it gives me the right, calls. Then I say, okay, my model is right. Now the percentage accuracy comes with how many times did it make a mistake. And it's called a learning algorithm. Every time it makes a mistake, it learns that, oops, I called this cat a panther, and this is a large cat, an overfed cat. So it learns. And what is inference? Once you have a model, then you say, now a new breast cancer scan comes, you input it into the model, and it comes back with an accurate diagnostic that indeed this is not a cancer. This is a very interesting graph. What I told you, I want you to focus on the last most production deployment. I can't see, the fonts are not very clear, but what I want to highlight here is, in this entire AI technology deployment, let's say for Reliance, the portion of AI is just that blue thing. Before that, you have to do many other things. Get the data, annotate the data. Let me give you another explanation of annotation. When we got the breast cancer scans, we had to annotate the whole scan, giving it relevance to if this, then what it means. If there are these veins, what are those veins? So whenever it sees the scan, it totally understands. For example, the bone degeneration, that will be easier for me to explain. That if this is my elbow, what are these other two bones going up or going down? All of those are annotated. What does contextualizing mean is not only have I explained that this is my femur, ulna, or whatever these bones are called, when they meet becomes my elbow. So that is what is called contextualizing. In example of a road, if I see a truck and a truck carrying a lot of steel pipes, so annotation means this is a truck, these are a whole lot of pipes. Contextualization means if there is a truck with pipes and the pipes are loose, you better don't stay close to this because one pipe can be loosened enough and hit you. That will be contextualization. So what I can't read, but there are a whole lot of processes before you come to the AI phase, and then comes the deployment phase. Once you make the inference, then what? Whole lot of things are required. So if you look at, starting with the bottommost, only 20% or less of the entire deployment is AI. You need all the other skills besides AI. Now let me go to the middle one, time to solution. Now this is the whole AI broken into details. Within the whole AI's implementation, the first part is sourcing the data. Then comes a whole lot of other things. Like I said, I can't read, but will be annotation, contextualization, creating, cleaning out false data, etc. In the entire time to solution, the first part, the first gray bar is training. Within the training, which is then separated from inferencing. So inferencing is the next bar. Now training requires GPUs, training requires accelerators, training requires really fast machines. And inferencing can leverage any kind of compute, not specialized. Now let me break the first one, which is training, into the topmost row, which is you see lots of colors. Only, I think, the purple and the blue are what requires compute. Rest all are something else. Compute of the AI types. Everything else can be done with standard compute, even your phone, for example. So, analyzing the data, statistics, psychology, economics, neurosciences, all of this will be required for a simple AI implementation. Why am I very confident that, I loved talking to Shobha on this whole program that she's driving? Because I believe in India, we will not struggle for AI adoption. Why? Because we have a lot of statisticians. How many analysts we have whose job is to build graphs, do the analysis? I also want to tell you, India is synonymous to software. How many programmers do we have? We have analysts, we have programmers, we have mathematicians, and we have all these other, non-STEM disciplines. It's not rocket science. And even if it was a rocket science, I know we can do it. But this is not a rocket science. You all have used graphical analysis. You all have consumed data. You all have leveraged analysis for your purposes, whether it's business, whether it's teaching, whether it's designing, whether it's fashion. All we need to do is where can this data-based technology be leveraged to create value for the people and for you so you can create new businesses. Also, another reason why I believe India has a great chance. Let me give you one example. You know, Shobha talked about Industrial Revolution 3.0. We are in the 4.0 revolution. It's all based on data, digitization, everything. We also know that over the last few years, with many of the platforms, the national level platforms like Aadhaar, for example, or the unified payment interface, what happened because of that? What happened was many of these startups, like Paytm or RuPay and whatever you have, were enabled. So much so that a street vendor selling guavas, you can pay using Paytm. So what happened? What happened was, from cash in the wallet to digital wallet happened. What did we do? We skipped the credit card generation. If you look at countries like United States or any, the Western country which is emerged, they use hardly any. When I was in US, I would hardly have more than $10, $20 in my wallet because I was using credit cards. Now, Paytm. I honestly am telling you that I have been buying, I love guavas and mangoes, and I have been using Paytm to pay to those vendors. Even, people who are helping you at home, your gardeners, will have bank accounts that you can use, to transition money. So we skipped credit cards. I believe that with AI, there are many other technologies we can skip. All of these gig economies, the shared economies, the Ubers, the Olas, we will see many more in India. And I feel AI as a technology will thrive in India because we are a very people-rich country. We have 1.2 billion population. We have tremendous volume of data. Not only that, we have variety of data. So we as Intel are working on autonomous driving and we have many partners. We took the responsibility of leveraging India data for collision avoidance. If you can avoid a collision on India roads, I assure you, you will avoid collision anywhere in the world. That we are that rich in traffic data, so everything which is viewed negatively for us becomes positive. A dog can cross the road, a highway, a child can decide to run, and if you can avoid accidents based on India data, you're done. So we have volume and we have variety. And I will tell you, where AI fails in corner cases. AI thrives on averages, works beautiful. What India has to offer? India offers corner cases, variety. The average event in India, I live in Bangalore and there is a locality called Martha that I cross every day to come to work. If I can drive a car autonomously in Martha, I assure you, no other world country can be that complex. My average event, which is a little child crossing the road or a cow sitting, is a 9 sigma event in any other country. So if we leverage our data, our variety, we will come up with AI algorithms more robust than anywhere in the world. So it's our responsibility, our chance, our opportunity to lead with information we have. I already told you a little bit about this, how AI is being leveraged in health area using computer vision, how we can help in agriculture. 1 degree Celsius temperature change can reduce the farmer's productivity by 7%. This is average. In some villages in Maharashtra, goes down by 20%. That is the margin the farmer has. And if he reduces his produce by 20%, where is his margin? He's overwhelmed with loans, and you then hear suicides. How sad is that? If a technology can save that, that's what we need to work towards. And similarly in the oil and gas, similarly in the finance segment, you can do a lot with technologies. I shared this with you, that many CEOs talk about AI is a buzzword. All of your, whether you're an academician, know that AI is going to be pervasive. Personally, I believe that AI will be as common tomorrow like Excel is today. I actually just gave a TED talk, and the TED guy said, the selling point of my presentation was this one line. And I don't know why I put in all this effort if this one line was what got me credit. But that's what it is going to be like. Why? Because you have been using it forever. However, people say that 58% of business and technology are researching AI, working towards it, but only 12% are using it. That's the problem I was talking about. This is a great technology. Where can you use it to create ROI for you, the people, and the business you're in? That's the change that we need to drive. I think I mentioned this a little bit. We have a lot of data. And another buzzword that you will hear in conjunction with AI is called unstructured data. Very simply put, data in the raw form is unstructured data. Structured data is, something which you can only give out in this format, or I only want the corner of the squares. Those are structured data. AI needs and works best on unstructured data, and honestly, India has plenty. AI enables scale. Like I was telling you, if we use cancer detection, and cancer is very scary, that's why I'm saying it, but in the villages, if we are able to reach through 5G, through AI, detection, diagnosis, AI will enable scale of technologies. It will drive efficiency. It will create democratization of value. People will be able to access benefits through technology. And that's why I believe that in India, each one of us needs to think, what value can we create with technologies like this? I want to give you one example. Shobha, have I got time? Okay. We're doing something called gray spot mapping in Karnataka and Telangana. Now, what is this? We have fitted cars with computers and some other accessories like cameras, LiDARs or radars, and collecting road data for two reasons. We want to build collision avoidance algorithms for India use case, and we also are creating what is called gray spot mapping. There are many accidents that happen not because of the driver mistakes. By the way, many happen because of the driver mistakes, but some happen because of poor infrastructure. What this gray spot will do, that for the entire state of Karnataka, we will have an XY coordinate, and that XY coordinate will be given a color. If it is white, that means the road, the turn, the banking is good enough. This will not be the reason for an accident. But if, for example, the road doesn't have enough banking. Banking means, sometimes the road have to be this to balance the centrifugal and centripetal forces. Because if the road is flat and you're making a sharp turn, the person will, go flying if it is on the scooter. So gray spot mapping will highlight issues like this. Or is there enough visibility? There is a turn. There is no visibility. There's not enough light, etc. So gray spot will be showing all these infrastructure shortcomings, and we will provide it to the government with the goal of fixing all of those gray spots. The entire state needs to be converted into white spots. That's what this gray spot will do. I was giving you one example of a truck carrying pipes. This is wooden pipes, but this is, an example of a data. What Intel has done, again in partnership with IIIT Hyderabad, in Telangana and Karnataka, we have created a lot of data, terabytes of data on the road. We have not only collected, we've made it open source, which means you or any of us can access this data and build use cases out of this, whether it's collision avoidance or not. I'll tell you, in Intel, we gave a challenge to our employees' children that if you have traffic kind of data available, what can you do out of it? And we got some interesting use cases. One kid said, if I knew what the traffic data was looking like in Arunachal Pradesh in May, and I am here in May in New Delhi, I can do a temperature calibration based on what the traffic data is looking like. It's, a lot of fogging, how much the natural light is coming. I can get an understanding of, Arunachal Pradesh temperature. And if I have a travel plan, I'll change it accordingly. I'll bring more woolen clothes. Remember, these are, 10, 12-year-old children. Another kid, very interesting. This was even a younger kid. I loved his thinking because this is what he said. That if I am on the road and if I see somebody that I really like, I know that somebody's car is nice or scooter is nice or the person is nice, I would like to flash my light on that car. It's almost like winking. So a car to car wink. This is a little kid that came up with this. So there are huge amount of possibilities. I mean, these are children's ideas, but what can you do by this traffic data? And I'll tell you, because we made it open source, we had 10,000 downloads in the first 2 weeks around the world. And we were able to present in Munich in the world's biggest computer vision conference, and the who's who of the computer vision community were there and, valuing this data set. I also want to tell you, perhaps the last thing, that we have partnered with the government of India, primarily Niti Aayog, and I talked about Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. We have created a first of its kind public-private partnership. We're calling it International Center for Transformative AI, ICTAI, and we are focusing on a certain use cases: health, agriculture, smart mobility, and finance. We have signed up to build a national level AI platform such that people can leverage this platform and build interesting use cases out of it. We will be focusing on these 4 areas, but the focus for you can be endless. We will make sure we have annotated and curated data sets available to you, open and secure data exchange platform, and algorithms and tools available. So all of the bottom levels of work will be done. You need to build application level interface to create value. So that's what we've signed up with the government. And our goal is to create value in these 4 areas and make a difference. Any innovation, to me, is much more valuable if there is impact to humanity. If there is value we can create, everybody's life is precious. everybody gets, a limited time. If we are born, we have to go. So let's make the best for that span that everybody has. Why do we only be the privileged one? Can we enable technology to the unprivileged and create an impact is what I feel. And in doing so, you also grow. Thank you very much, guys.
Wow, that was really interesting. Well, AI is going to be the next Excel. I mean, that was, again, a takeaway for us also. We will go in for a Q&A, but since Dr. Punya has just arrived, so we would like to, and since you've heard her, so if we can have your words and your views as Q&A, and I'll encourage students and others, of course, to come up with their questions, which Nivruti is going to answer.
And if you don't ask, I know you are hungry. It's already lunchtime.
Hi, I'm Shweta Rajpal Kohli. I lead government affairs for... Are you able to hear me? I'll try to be louder. I don't think the mic's working. Yeah. Hi, my name is Shweta Rajpal Kohli. I lead government affairs for Salesforce, another company that's doing some remarkable work in the area of AI. And I'd love to know from someone like you, Nivruti, a very simple question. These days, when you talk to policymakers, they very often talk about data being the new oil, being the new wealth for a country. And I was most impressed to hear you talk about how India as a country particularly can take advantage of this revolution that we're seeing in data, particularly with new technologies like AI. At the same time, I'd like your views on countries like India imposing data localization mandates because they believe that this is the way forward in terms of storing data locally, as opposed to, say, you talked about cloud, and we understand why it's important to have free flow of data across borders. But how do you respond as an expert on AI and use of data? How do you respond to governments saying that, you know what, you need to just store data locally?
So let me just tell you, can you guys hear me? Is this mic working? Okay. So data localization is a very interesting topic and a heated topic to some extent in various forums. Europe is also driving something called GDPR. I will just take it from technology perspective. I will take a technology like a building is burning, okay? And the information of that building is sitting in China, Taiwan, or Singapore. Now, no matter how fast your technology is, if that data was locally present, the reaction could have been that fast. I'll also tell you, technologies like 5G have opportunities where there is a solution called network slicing, which will enable priority to certain data being transmitted. Now, if I put the priority 1 to this data for a burning building, and it is locally residing, the action can be instant. In like seconds, the data is available. If the data is sitting in Singapore or China or wherever, it'll take tens of seconds. Technology is fast. But in situations of life and death, every second matters. So from technology perspective, that's what I would like to say. From policy perspective, there are very many different opinions, but there are certain use cases in which case I would want the technology to get access to data almost instantly. And life and death is one situation. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, policy is, can have very many different ways to look. After all, India grows, the world grows, so we can think of cross boundaries and say, why not locally? But there are very many descriptions and possible explanations. What about the students here? Sure.
Hello, my name is Ashwini Gupta. I am a retired officer of State Bank of India, now working as a freelance wealth manager. My question is, all these technologies and innovations are good. They make things easy, they make things accurate, and they achieve results which no manual effort can achieve. But what about the cost aspect? Are these cost effective? Can a poor country like India afford all these technologies? And can a poor institution, business for example, which is starved of funds, can they afford, are these within the reach of ordinary people?
Very, very excellent question. But let me ask you some things. How many people had smartphones 7 years ago? Very few, right? Yeah, some people had. Smartphones were very expensive. Whenever there is an invention and new technologies come into the market, they are very expensive. Can any of us afford a blockchain-based solution working for our families today? Answer is no. But what is the purpose of technology and innovation is to make it available for masses and scale. Unless the technology becomes cost effective, it doesn't become productive. So every single technology that is very expensive today, I assure you, the minds of the world are working on it to make it affordable, including many of us in this room. So many technologies which are very expensive, and I will tell you, blockchain is a technology which will drive a lot of security, a lot of safety. Today needs a lot of computers, lot of energy, and therefore not affordable. But I will tell you, there are technologies like virtualization happening in the cloud. What is that making? Making the machines general purpose and leverage the software for getting the best benefit, and making the technology of cloud affordable is coming through virtualization. So answer, Ashwani, is yes. Technology is very expensive, and today many of those technologies cannot be available for volumes and scale, but that's what innovation drives. And that's what will lead to newer technologies which will become expensive once these will become affordable.
I also have a question. Hi,
I cannot see you. Yeah, I can see you now.
so I'm Manish Gaur from IIT School of
I didn't hear your name.
Manish Gaur.
Use the table mic is what I hear.
Okay. Hi, I'm Manish Gaur. I'm from IIT School of Design, and Urbane the Design Workshop. We are a design company. We do architecture.
Excellent.
So we design workspaces. My question is, first of all, I'm very, very elated to be over here because it was a very educative and enriching session of yours.
Thank you, Manish.
My question is, I'm a very, very, ardent fan of broken window theory. And I think, we are progressive as a country, but what we lack is discipline. So how can AI help in making sure that we get disciplined? Say, for example, on a simple thing like traffic, we lack discipline over there. We have ruined our fantastic water conservation system by not taking care of them. So how AI can help in us getting back that important? If data is oil, then I think water is the most precious thing. All civilizations were made on the basis of water. So, how AI can help on that. And, to sum it up, how governance can be improved. So we become better organized and give back what we are actually, India as a country. I think what we lack is discipline. And if AI can help, that will be great.
So I see many questions in your statement. The first one is, how can AI or technology drive discipline? And in one of the examples, you talked about traffic and, congestion. Then you talked about water conservation. Water is such a precious commodity. How can we leverage discipline and in general becoming a discipline? Is that fair? Okay. So I will answer the easiest first. AI definitely can help with traffic congestion. And the data set we are collecting was primarily for that reason also, besides collision avoidance. If, for example, dynamically, I know that the next traffic light or 2 other traffic lights that I have is very congested, my car can automatically be told that, like Waze does it to some extent, but take another turn or drive. Or we can even manage the amount of time a traffic signal stays red, yellow, or green to improve traffic congestion. So there are many things we are looking at to leverage AI. No, go ahead. Signals and all of that. I will answer to some extent, Driver behavior is also something that we are looking at, how driver sometimes snoozes also and causes an accident. Now, the very basic fundamental question of how can we be more disciplined? That's a philosophical question, and a lot of discussion can, go about that. But I'll tell you one basic one-line answer. I have seen and studied many countries. Recently, I was looking at Mexico. I've looked at how Brazil and Venezuela and some of these countries saw the downfall, and how countries like, Germany, UK was, almost running the world at one point of time. I'll tell you the one sentence that will sum up why we are who we are is from economics perspective. When the supply demand don't match, it gives rise to a lot of corruption, cheating, this and that. So unless we grow our productivity and help the supply demand kind of match, we will be looking at ways of cheating, misbehaviors. I have seen, yesterday I was flying in from Frankfurt to New Delhi. Very educated guy. Wanted to board early when the flight attendant announced, okay, pre-boarding for people with children and old and disabled or, army veterans and stuff like that. A very educated guy traveling in business class. Children, adult, reaching height here, stood in the line. And when the flight attendant was rude, he was complaining. Kitna battamiz hai, Germans hai, like that he was saying. And then I was thinking, my God, for a few minutes, this guy could not wait. His children are not the children they were looking for who need extra attention. So many of those things are behavioral that we have to teach grounds up from, our children when they are going into school, we have to teach. Some can be answered with economics, supply and demand. So many things will require that basic discipline. But AI-like technologies can influence many areas where, for example, if, I'm able to reach 8 kilometers in 8 minutes, maybe I will not try to, drive on the side of the road which pedestrians are supposed to be, or, on a bike kind of a lane. Many things like that. In terms of water conservation, I'll tell you, I recently met with few guys who are seeking, and I'm going to figure out how as Intel I can help, amazing ideas on water conservation, leveraging technologies like AI, predicting rainfalls, predicting ways to save water, groundwater. Consumption will remain. The way to address water problem is not to reduce consumption, but exactly conservation. And there are technologists who are working on it. Technology is a need to achieve. One thing I will tell you, yesterday I was in a NASSCOM meeting, and I found out that the Prime Minister is looking at 3 areas: agriculture, energy, and water. And I loved it. These are some of the basic areas that we need to apply technologies on to make them better. But you and I can have a long discussion. I love your questions. And I think it's up to us to figure out how we can contribute. Every drop counts. So each one of you are empowered, you're strong, and contribute towards this.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Asim Prakash Anand. I am pursuing PGDM second year in GL Bajaj Institute of Management, Greater Noida. Ma'am, in your presentation, you shown that the facial recognition that the AI is recognizing, it's 97% accurate. But a few years before, I read some news that in Texas, due to AI, the wrong man had been found guilty just because the facial recognition technology has been detecting that 95% of his facial are matching with the criminal one. So here the AI is lacking that kind of accuracy. So what have been improvements has been done to that? Thank you, ma'am.
Asim, you actually answered a much more complicated question for me. So yes, every day the technology is improving, and our goal is to make the technology better and better every day. But you know what you answered without even knowing? That human beings will always be better than machines. While we call machine superhuman, machine will never become superhuman, because we'll always have somebody who can beat the machine, because after all, machine learning is based on the data collected from the world. It's the average data. Remember that I was telling you?
Yes, ma'am.
So there will always be situations where people will be made to realize that you are running the machine. Machine is not running you.
Thank you, ma'am.
But those mistakes occasionally will happen. When our algorithms become stronger, it will be much less. But trust me, humans in general will make more mistakes.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, my name is Ankita Dikshit, and I'm from. My name is Ankita.
Ankita.
Yeah.
Nice to
Ma'am,
meet you,
I'm
Ankita.
from GL Bajaj Institute of Management and Research. Actually, my question to you is, like you said, that there will be no decrease in employment opportunities for people in India, but there will be not wealth discrimination amongst people, citizens living in India. So I want that.
I think the discrimination will become lesser. I feel, I'll give you a different perspective of your question. Today, if you look at analysis says that women are receiving lesser salary as compared to men.
Exactly.
You know what AI will do? Will address this bias. AI will offer a level playing field for men and women. I'll give you one example. There were certain jobs that many people would not employ a woman, let's say in a factory or in a lab where occasionally you have to pick heavy things. Now, nobody needs to pick those heavy things because machine will be moving those things. So I feel that technologies like AI will actually make many things on a level playing field. Now, India, you said, I think India has an opportunity to leap ahead with AI. So wealth will be created. And remember that I was saying, don't just look at the India market for growing India wealth. Use India talent to get the money from the world, the 70 trillion. So enable your ideas and your business and market it to the world. So make in India, but made for the world. And that will only help address the wealth gaps. Thank you. But you're right. Today, our GDP per capita is 1/5 of the world. We need to work that much.
Hello, I'm Professor.
Thank you, ma'am, for a wonderful talk.
Thank
Ma'am,
you.
as deep learning is termed as black box, which means it has a challenge of explainability. In such a way, there is no clear explanation how the model used the data to reach particular conclusion. So, ma'am, how can we handle this challenge in medical diagnosis that we need explanations?
Okay. So today, if you look at, I'm just going to give you Microsoft Excel example. You're looking at buying a house. There are functions built into Excel that you put the cost of the house, you put the down payment, you put the interest rate, and it tells you over 30 years period what the mortgage payment is going to be. Do we know the details? Me, as an engineer, I don't know the details. I mean, I can tell that I know for some, but for some cases I don't know. But I believe the ability of calculation and I leverage it for my use. If you understand deep learning as data, model, training, and inferencing, then it will come back with variables. You need this, this, and this. Let's say cancer detection. It'll say, where is the scan? You input the scan. Now you know my data has gone in. Now my data is being applied to the model and comes out the prediction. I claim that the prediction is going to be 97% accurate. So you believe that with 97% accuracy, if my scan is telling that my bone has degenerated or not, I'll believe it. But there's still 3% room for error. You will not only use that diagnosis, but you will also talk to an expert and say, this is what the machine is saying. Now, you will get more pieces of advice. So there are many tools today that we use which are more or less a black box. We run our car. We don't know how our motors are functioning, but we run it because we know this is turning on, this is my gears, this is my brake. We work it. So AI will be like that technology. There are two types of AI consumption. One will be AI builders. The other will be AI users. AI builders will understand the inside of the black box. AI users will say, okay, this is the input, therefore this will be the expected output, and leverage it. And we need both kinds. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Question, I think all good things come to an end. So we'll take one question from there and maybe one question from this side. And then we're going to close it with the closing remarks from Vijay Sahu.
And because of these two questions, Shobha is going to get me a good cup of tea. Then I'll take those two extra questions.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Kshitij. I'm from MATE. I'm pursuing my final year engineering in computer sciences.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. My question was that you talked about that data is everything in AI. So when we collect this data, are we not hampering our privacy? Could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So very good question. Are ways or technologies which actually make the data anonymous. So you cannot link that this data is coming from which person. So we have to leverage technology, enable anonymity, protect a patient or customer's privacy, and then leverage that data. Now, many times, I'll just finish with one thing. There are people in Singapore who are actually paying patients money and getting their data with their consent. Now, if people are okay with that, so be it. But technologies are enabling scrambling, randomization, anonymizing, and then leveraging.
Yes, ma'am, I agree with you on the anonymity part, but in certain areas, even in the US, these supposed facial recognition technologies have been banned because they inhibit the privacy so much. They're having lip reading technologies and all. So how do we, stop that from happening?
See, for those kind of things, policy and regulatory approaches will be required. But facial recognition is not always bad. Let me just tell you one example. Imagine if you were, flying from here to Bangalore, and you're flying at a time where, there is many flights. If, for example, rather than you waiting in the line, talking to somebody, then that person putting a stamp, if the tool recognizes your face and says, yes, matches it to the, your PNR or your ticket, and says, go ahead. Imagine so much of inconveniences will be resolved. But I do agree, privacy needs to be taken care of, and that is why technologies are never independent. They always come with policy and regulatory requirement.
Yeah, on your right, ma'am. Yeah.
Madam.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
so one last question, you have to decide who
Yeah,
is going to.
yeah. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Meghna Khurania.
Hi,
I'm a
Meghna.
research scholar
It's a
from
woman.
JNU. I'm pursuing my PhD in skilling in India and the challenges which...
Skilling?
Yes.
Oh, lovely.
And the challenges which artificial intelligence poses to the skilling ecosystem in India. So my question is, recently the World Bank came out with a report talking about the changing nature of jobs. With the advent of artificial intelligence and the technological advancement that would happen. We know that in India, 93% of the workforce is in the informal sector. With the technological advancement happening, there would be challenges which the skilling ecosystem would face. My question is, in what manner can we really prepare or create our ecosystem, the skilling ecosystem, so that we are able to brace the challenges and prepare ourselves for the future jobs which would emerge?
Perfect.
Thank you.
So people like you, Meghna, right, need to make sure you understand. So there was one slide that I talked about that AI implementation is less than 20% of the entire job. Let me give you one example. Actually, yeah, Ananta here, he's my colleague at Intel. He reminded me we are doing few things in skilling. I'll give you one example. Now, I called out data contextualization and data annotation. I'm going to talk about women. Let's say so much automation happens that the cement mixing, etc., all becomes automatic. We get, pieces of wall for building a building, and those laborers are not required. You know what we can do? We're doing things for women. So I'm going to take all of those women laborers who are mixing, carrying the cement on their head and going to the building, reaching, wherever the cement is required. What I can do with them doesn't need education. I will give them whole lot of data. Initially, I can make it all manual and tell them that this data, make a circle every time you see a red. Make a circle where there is a corner. I'm trying to recognize a cat. And I'm saying whenever you see a ear-like thing, put a circle. So then whenever she puts a red circle on a triangular thing, I know that looks like an ear. Those kind of things which do not require much education will be very valuable for data entry. And uneducated people who can see can do this. Now comes the next level. There are people who are 10th pass. I am going to build a program and say, use this program, and this program will, do. So he has to push 10 buttons in this order, and this is. So data entry, contextualizing, annotation, analysis, printing out graphs, data sciences, economics, psychology, programming always, mathematics always, management sciences will be huge. So I'm not worried. All we have to do is people who are driving skilling like Shobha, Meghna, myself, and many other corporates, educators need to look at what are the areas that will be requiring for our future technology implementations. Those are the things we need to focus on.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Meghna.
So thank you, everyone. I think who says that our youth don't have, talent? I think so many wonderful questions and many more to come. So unfortunately, we have to end the Q&A session right here. May I invite Mr. Vijay Sahu, Chairman, FICCI Skill Development Committee, to come onto the dais. And before he goes in and gives his concluding remarks, I would like to invite Shweta Rajpal from Salesforce, because she has an interesting report to be released. It is a AI readiness index, which is an Asia Pacific report where India also features. So maybe Shweta, you can speak
about it. Yeah, thank you. I have this mic. So it's a great opportunity for me to talk about a very interesting report that was commissioned by Salesforce recently called the AI Readiness Index, which really assesses how ready are countries for AI. And when we say countries, we've divided it between industry as well as governments and consumers. So if we're talking about the next tech divide between people who adopt AI or countries that adopt AI or companies that adopt AI or customers and those who do not, then how can we get ourselves AI ready? That's something that the report has tried to explain. The report is online on the Salesforce website. I will be leaving a couple of copies with Shobhaji in case any of you would like to access this report, but I'd like to present one copy each at least to Nivruti and Mr. Sahud.
So maybe you can stand here. It's beach. Thank you, Shweta. So over to you, Bijay.